You're listening to Get Out and Drive podcast with John, Custom Car Nerd Meyer, and Shawn, Mr. Sedan Man Sherrill. We'll be bringing you gearheads all the information you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive?
I am Shawn, Mr. Sedan Man Sherrill.
I am John, Custom Car Nerd Meyer.
Today we're talking to Brad Ulmer. Brad is a fabricator and a graduate of McPherson College. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're kind of a newcomer to the love of automobiles. From what I understand, you didn't really grow up with a passion for cars like since a real early age, like a lot of people do. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I grew up. We didn't really turn wrenches in the house or around the house. Always appreciated new cars, but I anything before 1995 I didn't even know existed. It took some time before I discovered that and completely fell in love with it.
So when you was a kid, did you have Hot Wheels?
Oh yeah,
models, anything? Okay.
Hot Wheels. Played with Hot Wheels all the time. Legos. Pretty much. I was always involved with my hands. Wasn't necessarily car related, but anything that I could tear apart, I liked to tear apart and see if I could put it back together. Kind of the classic story there, but wasn't really car related.
So tell us, what did set the hook for you to create a love of cars?
Well, my aunt and uncle had a 95 Mustang Cobra, and when my sister, she's 4 years older than me, when she turned 16, that became her first car, and she was my school bus to and from school. And so early mornings, late evenings, a whole lot of time spent in that car. You hear classic American V8 every day. You're gonna feel something eventually.
Right.
So that was kind of my introduction into wanting to dive further into the community and the hobby than just, ooh, look at that.
Yeah. So you got to go to school and get driven there every day in a Cobra. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did she know this was not like a Ford Escort or something, that she knew it was different?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Me and a couple members of my family, well, more than a couple, have had an appreciation for cars for a long time, and that's definitely been a contributing factor to how I've wanted to get involved in the industry and the hobby. Sure. But yeah, it was a big badge of pride for her to have the big Mustang Cobra.
Right. You remind her all the time she could have had a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, I was like, man, why wouldn't you want a Maxima? That would have been sweet.
Right. Super sweet. Yes, super Cobra, sweet. Maxima.
Yeah, it's a tough scale to weigh, but
that's right.
So you are a graduate of McPherson College.
That's correct.
For those that don't know what McPherson College is, tell them what it is.
So McPherson College, it's a truly terrific program. It's a 4-year, to my knowledge, the only, for the time being, if not one of the only colleges where you can receive a bachelor's in restoration technology or restoration management. There's a couple different paths you can choose to go down, but essentially, the bare bones of it is they take students in and they get you out in their amazing shop, and you get to wrench on things, you get to cut on things, you get to you get taught you start off with the basics of drivetrain, the basics of chassis, upholstery, paint, metalworking, if you so choose, woodworking, machining, and they're kind of just, I wouldn't say brief, very comprehensive, but I mean, it's only a semester for each, so it's tough to cram all the information needed into a semester, but it really is a great jump. The initial classes are a really great jump start for somebody like myself into, eye-opening of what all goes into the restoration process, what it really takes to be a professional level or higher restorer. And then you can choose to go down several different paths, or, choose 2 or 3 time allotted. So I personally chose to go down the more, I consider it like the craftsmanship type course. I spent a lot of time in our upholstery lab. So I, spent a lot of time behind a sewing machine. We got to play around with button tufting and pretty much every different type of material you could wish for. I also spent a whole lot of time in our metals lab, playing around with power hammers, planishing hammers, English wheels, tree stumps and hammers, dollies. It's kind of a candy land for for people that like to move metal.
Yeah. So it's a 4-year course.
It's a 4-year degree.
Okay.
So yeah, you get a little bit of business, in mixed with it. But all restoration related.
Sure. Auto restoration related. Do they have criteria, like minimum criteria other than the graduation of high school? So
that's the minimum criteria, but there's a application process. So they kind of do similar questions like you guys are asking me right now. Sure. You write an essay on why you'd be a good fit for the program, what sparked your interest in classic antique cars, what sparked your interest in wanting to restore antique cars, and what kind of threshold of quality that you would like to see yourself provide the industry post-program.
So it's not necessarily a come-all situation. You have to solicit them, then they choose you?
Correct. Yeah. So there's a limited amount of space. It's expensive to run that type of program, I would imagine. So I believe there were about 120 students when I was there, which I believe is quite a bit more than a handful of years back. So yeah, it's fairly selective.
There's from what I've heard, there's a bunch of really heavy hitters in the industry that are supporting that place. Is that true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a whole lot of heavy hitters that support, not necessarily monetarily, but getting the word out about it, bringing light onto kind of the next generation of restorers and custom car builders. And then there's a whole lot of heavy hitters that have come from the program. Most of the professors that are currently in the program are graduates of the program. And you can't meet, you can meet very few more knowledgeable people, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I was actually solicited by that college to go out there and teach. Planets didn't line up, and obviously I've not been out there, but they actually did find me on social media and solicit me to go out there for a teaching position.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's a pretty big compliment unto you. And after working with you for a little bit, you would have been a great choice.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome to hear that those places like that are out there, and that they're soliciting people that are in the industry, that are like knee deep in the industry, that have had years under their belt, and they're passing on information to the next generation of people to try and keep this whole situation going. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty special experience just to even go and visit. And it's super welcoming. Anybody who, stops by at the correct time, obviously not right now.
Right.
But, there's people coming through all the time, just, taking a tour around the shop, getting to talk, just talking to students, talking to the staff. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. If our listeners and viewers out there now don't know, Brad is currently one of the newer techs. He's working with us in metal fabrication area at Frisco Hill Auto. And I think he's really learned a lot. He's doing a great job. And it's the usual thing, like Brad a lot, learn with your mouth shut. And it works really well. I've learned a lot from Brad, and vice versa. And I'm sure Brad talks to Shawn quite a lot. And just, we always try and preach. Shawn says it a lot. I say it a lot. I say it to Brad, in jest, but learn one new thing every day. That's very important. I'm a jokester, and I'm always talking to Brad and trying to yell at him across the shop, and I'm sure Shawn's tired of it. But I try and teach Brad through cause and effect, and that's kind of the way I was taught. And I think it's really important. It's a great way to learn.
Yeah, and that, like you said, that's there's no replacement for experience, and so that's why I said the college is a really good kind of like eye opener, initial skill builder. You learn a lot about it, the history. But I mean, for me personally, the amount that I've learned in the past, however many months, it's been 8 or 9 months that I've been working with you guys, the amount that I've learned has just been overwhelmingly incredible.
Yeah, I can say that just kind of not being a fabricator myself, but just standing back and watching the things I've seen you learn in the last, like you said, 8 or 9 months has been huge. And your abilities between starting and now, you can definitely tell a difference. And
Oh yeah, and I mean that's also comfortability,
right,
coming into a new place and getting confident, getting shaking off the jitters. But yeah,
Sure.
the amount of improvement that I've seen has been allotted very much towards you guys and Roy, and just getting hands on, watching you guys, just getting experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You have any interest in having a car for yourself? I know
boy.
we've talked about that for a little bit, and every day you come in, you're like, yeah, look at this car I found, and I try and head you in the right direction, and keep replacing your wants and desires with something that's cool, right. Make sure that everything's fine. Tell you that 4-doors are parts cars, and we use those sacrificially to build good cars. So what are you looking to buy? You gonna waste your money on a car soon?
Oh man, I sure hope so. the itch is there. Yeah, I've got the fever. I've been on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, you name it. I mean, if you would have asked me 8 or 9 months ago, I would have 100% said, I'd like to cut up a Model A, do something unique, do something that would be kind of a reflection on myself. But right now I've had the fever for a shoebox Ford. I mean,
wow.
I would absolutely love to do just a little tasteful chop, maybe a little bit of a channel, and then just fairly stock drivetrain. Maybe a hot flathead, but nothing crazy. Just a nice driver.
It's great. But, it's great to hear somebody under the age of 40 say the word flathead.
Yeah, I mean, Real Fords don't have valve
and I
covers. Come
don't
on now.
Right. I know real Fords don't have valve covers.
Yeah, I've heard Brad talk a lot about flatheads. I know he's a big lover of flatheads. So.
Oh man,
Yes. And you'll learn a flathead. That's the most money you've ever spent on an engine that goes slow.
Yeah, I'm well aware. It's like I said, I would absolutely love to do a build like that. But the pocketbook stars have to align.
Yeah. Now what kind of style are you looking at? Are you looking more modern looking? Are you looking at skirts and white walls and tail dragger? Where are you headed?
So I trying to envision it. I see skirts. I see the visor.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do kind of a good mashup, really.
Sure. Right.
Just keep it all relatively clean.
Mm-hmm.
Try and go with timeless stylings.
Right.
So nothing crazy. No giant pipes out the back. No zoomies or anything. But
no billet wheels and white walls. We have a specific formula.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, personally, and this is just speaking for me, I've never really been drawn to white walls too terribly much. But with certain builds, I see white walls. I'm like, that's a really nice touch.
Right. Some of those are era correct. Like white walls belong on this car. If you're going from this era backwards, they don't belong on that car. A 40s era build car, it doesn't need white walls, and mid 50s kind of needs white walls to set it off. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think it's fairly build specific depending on what your goal is.
I like hearing that you understand that it's build specific.
Yep.
Yeah.
I see too many people try to mash up different eras, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah, I think when done tastefully, it really hits. But I think it's fairly odd. Well, I mean, it's in the eye of the beholder. But for me personally, when it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit hard.
Right, it's a big fail, and you don't want to end up on one of those pages that people poke at your car.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to end up on a kill it with fire page.
Right. Exactly.
But if it happens, it happens, I suppose. Building it for me.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And that's the big thing you got to remember. You're building it for you. We preach a lot. Do what you can with what you have, the skills you have, and just get it out and drive it. It doesn't have to be a perfect piece of jewelry car to get it out and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put together what you like, get it rotted, get out and drive it, and enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. Have a good vision. Have a good vision on what you're looking for, and we preach it a lot. Wheels, stance, color, in that order. That will absolutely make or break a vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely the biggest eye drawers, especially immediately, which should be the initial response anybody's getting in, because you should be out driving it. Cars were built to be driven. In my opinion, a garage ornament is all fine and good, but it's for the love of driving. I think that's really the biggest part of why most people get involved in the automotive community. And I think it's one of the most special parts of being involved with, people in the automotive industry and the community.
Absolutely.
Is that shoebox kind of the only thing you're interested in, or do other cars, you may not be able to build them right away, but other cars catch your eye?
Oh man, anything under the sun. At one point, I'm sure I will have a need or want to get my hands on. I early on loved Mustangs, still love Mustangs. I would love to own a 60s or an early 70s at some point in time. Who knows, in a couple of weeks that might be at the top of my list.
You told me earlier that you see them, that they're cool, but you don't dig the Mustang fastback so much because they're just so out there. So saturated.
That has been something I've noticed with my taste, is when something gets really saturated, like you said, like a fastback Mustang, once I see kind of like all the different styles that people have done, my imagination has trouble coming up with something new. And that's kind of what I envision for my builds is, what can be something that's unique, something that when somebody sees it down the road, when I've made a bit more of a name for myself, they say, oh, wow, that's, he had a hand in that because of XYZ.
Right. You got to get it to
iconically
put your mark on it.
Right. And that's kind of that's the dream. And that's a goal that I'll reach for. But that being said, I still love fastback Mustangs. Love fastback Mustangs. There's not a whole lot to not love about them. But if I was going to do a build of my own, it'd be a tough scale to weigh, but I think it would end up coupe.
Well, yeah, I'll ruin your life, and I will definitely get you in the text loop where Shawn sends me every wish that he ever wants or ever I should buy and build on Facebook Marketplace, because he texts me and says, hold the phone. There is a 69 Camaro X race car with a full NASCAR cage in it on Marketplace for $1,200. Go load the trailer up.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
Don't you realize I've gotten in trouble because it's like 10:30 and I'm texting with Shawn saying, oh God, I need this car. Geez.
Yeah.
I need this car. And then behind me, my wife's like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to Shawn. We're going to go get this. No, stop it.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
And that's what good friends are for.
Right.
And then we both get yelled at.
Right, exactly. And she's texting Shawn as I'm texting Shawn, and Shawn's texting me that she's getting texted back and forth. I'll go ahead and put you in on that. That's fun.
I would love that.
Yeah, that's fun.
One of my buddies and I just started talking about on Marketplace, when you see something with a parachute on it, don't be afraid to buy it, but maybe be afraid to take it to the strip.
Right. That is exactly right. I showed you recently, and we've got videos up of it. My son, he recently traded his dune buggy for a 89 Mustang hatchback with a 521 in it. And there's things coming across my phone right now. He's sending me pictures. He's going to buy a new rear end for it. Put a new rear end in it. He's changing everything on it already. I don't know. I'm trying to pass on the next stuff to him. He's 25 years old. He's darn near same age as you are. And I'm trying to pass on that stuff to him. Do I want him building a Fox body Mustang? Do I want him building something older? Probably so. It's just, that's what interests him. And God bless him. But that's what he's doing. But at least it works well.
At least he's into something. He's working with his hands. He's in the hobby.
Yep.
And at some point, I'm going to guess, he's going to kind of grow tired of that, and maybe he'll want something a little older.
Yep.
Everybody goes through this phase. I know you make fun of me about wanting to build stuff, and I've got 10 builds going on in my head at any given point.
Exactly.
And I open up Marketplace and see a new car, and my brain just immediately starts building that car. And I've got to tell you about my great idea that I just had 10 seconds ago, and how I've already got this car put together. Regardless that I've got 2 projects already sitting in the driveway. Right.
I think if it's sat for long enough, and every time I talk to him, he says, I heard you pull up. That doesn't have an LS in it yet. Okay, I didn't notice it needed one, but all right.
Well, you should know. I've told you how many times, but
it's true about this many.
It's all good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Got to start using your toes accounts.
Right.
We'll get you there at some point.
Right. I know. One day we're building a 55 Chevrolet Post 4-door, and we're a guy who can cut it up into a 2-door, and we're going to build that, and then we build this other car, and then we build homage to the NASCAR, and we're going to build some other kind of thing that we're going to run to work, and it only has a window net and a screen for a windshield.
You just drive something like that.
You tell me people wouldn't get out of your way if you had no exhaust, side exit exhaust, and a window net, and you pull up to get hamburgers with that thing at the White Castle. You pull down the window net just so you get your food. You can't hear them.
Little kids cry and.
Right, exactly. You just drive around and there's nuns and puppies running out of the way. And
Isn't that the dream, though? That's the dream, though.
It is the dream.
dream.
It's got to have a 4-speed in it, and it's got to be loud, and it's got to scare people, and it's got all those things. Yeah. So.
I have hard enough time going through drive-thrus with my truck.
Yes. Yeah. You got to turn that off just so you can say, "I want a hamburger."
Yeah. Cut it, please. Get a Frosty.
Yeah, that's right.
So Brad, what's your dream car? If you could have anything, and I know it's probably changed, but if you could build one dream car, what would it be?
Oh man. So I kind of have this categorized into several different dream cars, kind of depending on which scenario you're talking about. If you're talking about unlimited money scenario,
unlimited money. What
unlimited
does it for
money
you?
In this virtual world, what's the car?
Oh man! Even after that being said, I still have to rattle around the 2 or 3 that float around all the time.
Hit me.
Let's hear 'em.
Hit me.
Let's hear 'em.
I mean, ever since I saw pictures of old Duesenbergs or the 16-cylinder Cadillacs or any of those super long, regal, just elegant, pre-war cars, that I've just been captivated by those since I started noticing or started getting into antique or vintage cars. So that I don't have a specific model, year, make, but I would have to say a high-end pre-war like luxury car.
Will you be wearing a coat made from Dalmatian puppy?
100%. Yeah. The picture isn't complete without, but I mean that driving down the road in one of those, I can't imagine the feeling, but I imagine it's pretty good.
Okay. Well, I got to say that I have never heard anybody, particularly your age, but say under the age of 50, bring up one of those cars.
Oh, yeah.
That is true.
That's, while it surprises me, it's cool to hear that you appreciate that era.
Yep.
Oh, so much. And we were talking about it the other day. In my mind, right at this moment, automotive design peaked at year X, and there's small dips and raises throughout the years, but really any era, I think you can find something that really matches what your personal interest is, and just say, wow, what would it be like to cruise around in something like that. But at this point in time, pre-war is something that I really meshes with my taste.
Yeah, just to see some of those cars that are the words I can put to it is 30s era Hollywood elegance.
Oh yeah, big time.
Right, and you see the big flowing fenders and the long body with the coach on the back and all that type of stuff. I see where you're going with that, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
what else is floating around in your head?
Sounds to me like maybe a trip to Pebble Beach for Brad would be a good idea.
That would be awesome.
Yep.
Hopefully one day. Yeah.
Yeah. Very much
on the bucket list.
Yeah, definitely.
It's cool. So what's floating around in that head of yours?
Well, like we talked about, a shoebox Ford would be awesome. And like you guys were talking about earlier, cutting up a 4-door into a 2-door, that would be something that I would love to do. Just really stretch it out, bring out the kind of elegance factor, in my mind. I absolutely love early 50s trucks, mid 50s, late 50s, early 60s trucks, really. I dabble around with a Fox body.
Wow. Okay.
Man,
Very good.
I love Datsuns.
Okay.
Early Datsuns. 510 would be awesome.
A little
280 would be awesome.
Little 3-box, little Datsun.
I think they're pretty sweet. They're pretty simple, but there's something too simple.
Simple always works.
Yeah, simple works, and it's awesome. I know there's a lot of guys that are, I don't know, one of those early JDM guys or road racing.
Oh yeah,
those little 510 little Datsuns, and a lot of guys are into early rotary cars. Oh
yeah, that's coming up pretty big. I've noticed. I think it's something that's pretty cool because I haven't really seen a whole lot of involvement of early Japanese-made vehicles in the restoration or the custom world a whole lot,
right?
Especially not in the Midwest,
right?
So to see that coming up, I think it's for me, it's a pretty exciting new, I'll call it like chapter that's coming up in the community. Not necessarily always my taste, but I can certainly appreciate that more people are getting involved and getting their hands on cars and bringing them back on the road.
Right.
I think that's awesome, especially the uniqueness of like a rotary car. Those, people have their opinions about them, but they're unique. They're kind of cool to me.
Right.
Might not love the cars they're in. Some of them I do. But I think it's pretty exciting to see that people are getting them back out on the road, if not the road, on the track.
Has Shawn showed you pictures of that? I think it's a gray Austin station wagon that's built pro touring. Is that correct, Shawn?
No, that is a little Anglia wagon.
I said Austin, Anglia. Yep, that is correct.
Yeah,
no, I have not seen those pictures.
Yeah, that thing is cool. It's a local car, and it's done street rod style. Man, you talk about just a neat car. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you talk about some of the imports that people are starting to bring out. I hear a lot of times people say that, and I know I've said it before too, that you kind of get tired of seeing the same cars all the time. Some guys have cars that they've had for years. I've had my Chevelle since '93, and I'm sure people are sometimes tired of seeing it. But to me, it's refreshing. I'm not being an import guy, but it's refreshing to see something different come out. That it's not another red Camaro, or it's not another Fox body Mustang. Not knocking those. I like those too, but I like seeing new stuff. People thinking outside the box and bringing out something cool and unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Anglia is an absolutely well-built car. Street rod quality. Shawn and I just fawn over the car every time we see it, because it is a bastard child car. I mean, it is just why would you want to build one of those into what it is? It's something you look at and you go, who the hell decided this was a good idea? But it's an awesome outcome.
Yeah, and not only it's nicely done, it's very tastefully done too.
Yep.
Like a gray exterior, red interior. I mean, every decision that guy made on that car, in my opinion, he nailed it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I appreciate the fact that you brought up the complementing exterior interior, because there's something about a good interior that's thought out with the rest of the car that I think, in my mind, really sets off different builds above the rest. Is that complete picture of, not only is it a complementing color for the body lines and the era and how the car was built externally, but having a well thought out interior that complements the rest. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you can see sometimes on a build where you can see where one shop built something and then someone else finished it, or one person built it and then another guy built it. There's not a cohesive process. And you can really see those vehicles sometimes. They're finished and they may be okay, but there's no cohesive process where this is the engine that I started with in the beginning, and this is the way I saw it. This is the interior and the color and everything. When I build a vehicle, and if I build it for a customer, it's going to have a cohesive engine, transmission, rear end, chassis, interior color and style, and it's not going to be a mishmash of things. No decisions made throughout the build. Most of the 85% of the decisions are made before we even turn a wrench. And that's important on a car build.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people kind of screw up on their builds, is they don't have a vision, they don't have a plan when they start, and they'll chase this style for a little bit, and then they see another car. Oh, I want to add some of this to it, and then I want to add some of that to it. One, you kind of get a mishmash of styles that don't go together. But two, but financially, it's just not a smart decision. You'll end up spending more money trying to match up those ideas. And I went this way for a little bit. Now I want to change things. Now I got to spend money to make it more like this.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people lose interest in building cars, is they kind of get in over their head, money wise. Yeah, and then the car ends up sitting in the garage and nobody gets to enjoy it. So my advice to anybody who's going to build a car, do the build in your head, do it on paper before you ever lay a wrench on the car.
Right.
And you could build it in stages, but have a plan and shoot for that plan.
Right. As Brad certainly knows, it's hard to go reverse in sheet metal.
It is very difficult. Yeah, it takes more time to change something that's already been done than to completely scrap it and do it how you want. That is
100% true. And I've had customers, in the middle of the build, make a left turn, bring me a magazine, bigger, badder, better, the most best thing ever today. And most of the time that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to implement into a build that is at a point where you're thinking about putting primer on.
Oh yeah.
Especially at that point. But
go ahead.
I was gonna say I've been victim of the I just want to get this car and then I'll figure out the drivetrain. So I get the block and get the transmission. Oh, well, it's a GM block and a Ford transmission. Well, now I've got to spend more money to rebuild the transmission and, get the input output shaft to the right spline and all that mess. And it ended up just being, a Studebaker sitting in my shop, just stripped and ready for suspension modification or frame modification and, an empty checkbook.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, the correct decisions and there's no plan makes the checkbook go away quickly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very much. Harsh learning curve.
Harsh learning curve. You got friends, buddies, people you hang around with that are into cars or no?
Locally, I'm a lot of my friends appreciate cars very much, like I did. But locally, nobody really, in my close friend group that I've had for a long time, that, likes to get out and wrench on cars and cut on metal and move metal and all that. A lot of the people that I went to the college with and even a lot of the faculty members still keep in touch with, talk to pretty frequently and, shoot the shit about builds and, what new post on Marketplace has you staying up at night thinking about, oh, well, that would be really cool. And, this drivetrain would be really sweet in that. And I don't think it's been done before.
Awesome.
But yeah. And that's another reason I'd be really excited to get into doing a build of my own, is so that I can get more active in the community and start being more present in the St. Louis St. Louis car community.
Yeah, you're not originally from St. Louis, is that correct?
I'm from the area.
Okay.
I'm born in Central Missouri.
Okay.
Moved to just outside St. Louis, or just outside St. Louis, quote unquote, when I was 2.
Okay.
So I grew up in the area, but didn't spend a whole lot of time more towards the city.
Yep.
Until recently.
Cool.
Sorry, my dog is losing his mind in the background.
Oh, that's what this is all about. We're working off the cuff.
Yeah.
That's what I made sure I brought my tape measure. See, and Paul knows I stay 6 feet away from my screen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sorry.
So I make sure I don't have any problems.
Do you go to a lot of car shows? Have you been to car shows in the St. Louis area? What's your take on the car show scene?
In the St. Louis area, I've been to the big new car show that goes on in the arena.
Okay.
And I when I owned my my 370, I would go on some of the 370 owners cruises, but that's kind of my extent in the Missouri area, since I had uprooted from St. Louis before changing direction into the automotive industry. So that's when my taste really developed, was after I was already out of St. Louis.
Okay.
But when I was in Kansas at McPherson College, all the students are really involved in their car show. And later on, I was heading a committee for 2 years for the car show, planning out and day of operations type stuff. But I really appreciate car shows. I would like to see more events, more kind of cruises or drive-in type events.
Right.
Those have always been the most fun events that I've gone to, because it's you go on a 10, 20 mile cruise or however far, and then you all meet up somewhere and park, get out, talk to each other, hear stories of their car, hear the build, stories of the build, get to know the person and their car, and what kind of bond they've formed with their car, and what kind of bonds have been formed around that whole story.
Right.
And
we always talk about you can't listen to a car at a static car show. You can't see how it drives and see how it operates and all that stuff. It's great that you walk past a car at Sonic or wherever you're going to go.
Right.
You don't know what it sounds like. You don't know. And especially when Shawn parks his car and the hood's shut, everybody thinks it's a 6-cylinder stick.
Right.
No one knows it's got a 500-inch big block in it.
Right.
And they kind of look at it weird when he starts and leaves. And nobody pays attention to the car because it's so mundane. It's so simple. It's so right for the era. And that's important. And on driving tours, there's a lot of people that look at Shawn's car and they listen to it and everything. It's great. It's completely different on a moving road tour than it is just looking at static cars.
Yeah. And I think
a lot of people spend a lot of money and thought into big engines and exhaust and making their car sound cool and making it fast. And then they want to let it sit at a car show where nobody can hear it. And
I really like the idea of events where it's, maybe even a drive-in car show or something, just to get people with these, awesome cars out on the road with them. Because a lot of, I don't really hear of a lot of people that have these, really cool builds in their garage that, you're not going to drive them to work necessarily. And you're not going to, they're not going to just take them out at random. There's got to be a reason. I mean, that wouldn't be me personally, but I think it's a really cool idea to have events where it gives people a reason to, get out and drive. I think that would be a really good direction for, car events to go in, is be more hands-on and be a little more relaxed than just, this is my perfectly polished, X or Y.
Right.
Ooh, shiny, don't touch it. I think
Right.
it'd be really cool to have more events where it's, hop in, get a feel for it.
Yep.
Grab your car, let's go
Right.
drive, or everybody meets up and drives in somewhere, and then have a more formal car show or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be really cool to have a kind of a mashup,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the best way to put it. Of the different
drive and park
categories.
and kind of hang out a little bit, and
Right.
and that's kind of fun. And there's several key people that are in St. Louis, and I can say this because I know they're watching. You know who you are. They will tell me about their car, and these are people I've known for 25 years or more. They tell me about their car and how neat it is. I've seen it one time. And, they won't bring it out because it's too high humidity, or it rained yesterday, or there's too many bugs, or they give me 1,000 different excuses why I've never seen their car. And I make sure to beat on them every time.
Well, you know that the coolest cars have rock chips.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And we say it. Shawn said it, all the time, and Brad knows too. Every rock chip is a trophy.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
you've got to get out. You've got to get out and drive. You've got to use your car.
Yep. That's what they were built for. It's what I think a lot of people's attachment or draw to cars is the memories and the experiences of driving. And
right. Yeah, nostalgia is a powerful thing. Nostalgia is super powerful, and it will drive you to restore something that's crazy. I never thought I would get people calling me, but in my shop, there's people calling me saying they want the weirdest car I've ever got a phone call on was somebody wanted me to restore a late 70s AMC Spirit station wagon. Silver, wood grain, maroon interior. And I thought to myself, isn't that what we pack garbage in to crush it into a little cube at the salvage yard? And they said, well, yeah, but that's what my mom drove me to school in the 70s and 80s. That's what I want. And nostalgia runs on that 30-year loop. And I said, are you sure you want to spend money on that? Because, Pinto or Porsche, they cost the same amount of money to restore. And you have chosen a 70s AMC Spirit station wagon. And he said, yes. It never came up, but it was already in his brain that that's what he wanted. Mom sold the car years ago and whatever. That's his spark. That's what drives him. You may want to restore, an SN Cobra because you rode it in grade school.
Oh, yeah.
That I don't know. I mean, there's a different spark for every person, and that's why we're trying to do this series recently of introducing our viewers to younger builders. I got to know what drives me. I got to know what drives Brad, and I have to make sure that these are different things, and we may not have the same views, but we have the same drive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool.
And you got to make a good point there, John. A lot of people's stories start with, I remember riding in a car when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever remember anybody saying, I remember sitting in a car show as a kid. It's always, I remember riding. So their parents or whoever was driving that car, it's always a driving experience that got them, that the nostalgia is kicking in on.
Right. Yeah, everybody looks at, and Shawn beats on me all the time about the Mustang 2s. I know it. They're stupid. That's a nerd car. That's a car that donates parts to build a street rod. But my love for that idiot automobile is my dad taking me on a drive on one of those brand new in 1975 or 76 or whatever it was, we took a brown King Cobra, or whatever year it is, 78. We took a King Cobra and we drove that thing with I'm in the back seat and my dad's driving and the salesman's in the front seat, and all 130 horsepower. I guess my dad let them all loose at one time. He's smoking the tires in this car and he's taking the salesman on some sideways ride in this car. And I remember that. And I'll never forget it. And as silly and as goofy as those cars are, that's embedded in my brain forever. And I put that memory with every one of those cars that I see. I remember watching Charlie's Angels and watching, the blue and white Mustang that was, goofy looking, that it tried to mimic a vintage Mustang then. I remember those things, white car with blue stripes on it and everything. For whatever reason in my bent up mind, I like that.
I know I pick on you a lot about that, but I get it. I mean,
no, I understand.
It's a powerful
and it's for
thing.
Good reason. Half my brain says you're stupid, and the other half says, but don't you remember this is cool?
Yeah. It's not the way I see it, it's not the love of the car per se. Mm-hmm. It's the love of what the car represents and what the memories that it brings back to you, and I get that.
No, and I'm not knocking you at all.
I know.
I have an internal fight inside my brain.
As you should.
Yes, exactly. What idiot Daly's a Maverick? I don't know.
I
don't know.
All right, so Brad, you being a younger guy, where do you see this hobby? Kind of, what direction you see it going? Where would you like to see it go?
I'd say younger people are more drawn to having grown up with fuel injection and no wait or warm up to just go. I think a lot of people are going to get drawn to more resto mod type builds, and I mean that's been fairly true in the recent years and even prior. I think a lot of people are going to continue to go for the classic look, however that is, 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s, 30s, whatever it is, with a more modern, whatever it is, with a more modern drivetrain and I'll say driving experience. How I would like the industry to go. I don't mind resto mods. At this point in time, it's not necessarily my flavor, but I can definitely respect the work and the craftsmanship that goes into something like that. Just for me personally, I love carburetors. It's hard to replace one of the an experience like that for me. But I think the industry is going in a really good direction. There's a lot of young people that I know that are really dedicated to putting out the best work that they can and constantly improving. And I'm sure there's even more that I don't, I know there's way more that I don't know. And I think it's, the next 10 years are going to be really exciting for the industry. Because I think more people are going to start delving deeper into the oddities, since the market is becoming very saturated in the staples. And it's already been fairly evident of that. But I think newer or later models are going to start coming up, and that's going to pose a new challenge for the industry, being at different materials and different, just a different build than all metal and all cloth or all leather.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I know Shawn and I talk about it a lot, and Brad and I have talked about it. Do you think that safety features on cars are making people lazy drivers?
I go back and forth on this. It depends on the safety feature, but I would say yes.
Okay.
Learning,
and I say that because you see it, because you drive a vehicle daily, and I don't. You drive a vehicle daily that has may have lane monitoring. It has disc brakes. It has anti-lock brakes. It's got all sorts of creature comforts and things. And then you immediately get into a vehicle that's from the 30s, 40s, 50s. That's at Frisco, and you have to learn how to drive that differently. How do you think that affects you? You can do it, and you're starting to learn how to do it seamlessly, but you certainly can't get from a brand new car into a 33 Pontiac, and you need to know what the hell you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The learning curve for operating newer vehicles is, I wouldn't even really call it a learning curve anymore. It's, just a flat line, really.
Right. You don't even have to get the keys out of your pocket or purse anymore. You go to the car, and the car lights up, and it realizes, oh, hey, Brad, how are you?
Right. Yeah. It talks to you and everything.
Right.
I would say some of the safety features that are coming out now, like the lane assist and the smart cruise control, in my mind, I feel like it's definitely it could potentially make someone like you said, a lazy driver, where, what if there's a splattered bug on the sensor, and your active cruise control doesn't work properly on the highway once, while you're rear-ending somebody at a pretty high rate. And especially if someone is going to be going from a new car with all the smart assists and whatnot, and smart sensors, if they're going to go from that to a classic or vintage automobile, someone would definitely have to be very mindful of not necessarily how to operate the vehicle, not to damage the vehicle itself, but also not to harm others on the road. Because like you said, that some of the pre-war or early post-war vehicles that we see come through the shop, some of them you have to control the advance with a lever, and you have the choke and potentially an unsynchronized gearbox, or albeit a manual gearbox is just pretty hard to find somebody, especially my age nowadays, that knows how to operate a third pedal.
Right. Exactly. Much less get in and know that you have to turn the key and push the button to start, and you have to pull the choke out and adjust this and adjust that and 13 other things even before you can think about starting the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then let it warm up before you take off.
Correct.
That's one of the big things I see. People want to get in, bump the key, and automatically put it in gear. And you can't do that in older cars sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I've had that fight with customers that go from a late model car with triple door seals and fuel injection and everything. They get in a vintage car, and they want to know what's broken about it. It's not broken. You're trying to use it past its mechanical limits.
Right. You can't just blip it out of high idle and start going. You got to let it.
Correct.
You got to let it warm up and wake up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And
there may be a little wind noise around the windows, and there may be a rattle or two. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, I find in auto restoration, the older my customers get, the better their car used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was never like that. It was always like that. You're older, and your new car has got triple door seals, and you could never hear an ambulance crashing into the side of you while you're driving. and you just keep on rolling. And what I'm getting at, and Brad and we talk about this quite a lot, it takes the driver out of the driving experience.
Yeah. And that's, I was lucky to have owned the 370 that I did because it was a more stripped down, I'll say, race or driver inspired type car, where it didn't necessarily have traction control. It was there, but good luck getting it to do anything. It was a 6-speed gearbox, 3 pedals. It had road noise. And I learned to drive on an automatic, but the majority of my early driving was on a manual gearbox, and I didn't have the blind spot indicators and the smart cruise control and all that. And going from learning on an automatic transmission to even though it was a newer standard transmission, there was a whole nother level of attentiveness that went into driving in traffic or even on back roads, a whole nother level of foresight that you could use while driving a vehicle like that to control the RPMs in your favor, not rear end somebody.
You mean paying attention when you have to drive a car.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't be looking down your Facebook feed on the highway when you don't have a car that drives itself.
Yeah. A little tech tip for all of our listeners. If you want to make sure your teenager won't text and drive, get them a manual.
There you go.
Get them a manual transmission.
And it brings a whole new understanding.
It certainly does.
Whole nother level. And for me personally, driving a manual got me inspired to learn more about cars, because I wanted to know, well, why do I need more RPMs to downshift? Why do I need less to upshift? How does a combustion engine work? How does a transmission work? And I think a lot more young people would get into cars with more manual transmissions being available. It brings a whole nother level of, for me, in my opinion, it brings a whole nother level of fun to driving, to have more control over the vehicle.
That's true. And it all comes down to driver experience. Not experience as in history of being a driver experience, meaning I'm holding onto the car, I'm steering this, I'm steering that. And it's absolutely incredible. It on this subject, it terrifies me that some of the newer cars, they tried it for a while. They have steering that's fly-by-wire.
Oh yeah.
It's not directly connected. The steering wheel is not directly connected to the gearbox. That it's like an airplane. That steering wheel lever and whatever in an airplane, I'm not a pilot, whatever you call it, it's not connected to the wings. It's not connected to the tail. And it terrifies me that a computer is being told that I'm turning left. And it has to turn that gearbox by some sort of signal feed. It terrified me when I saw the pickup trucks, I guess it was 2003 or whatever, Silverados that had the rear steer, that you could turn the steering wheel, and then it would turn the rear wheels. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah, it's no longer a steering shaft; it's a steering solenoid. And
exactly.
Shawn and I were just talking about this the other day. When it comes to wiring, it's pretty easy to get a bad ground.
Yes.
And if you get a bad ground on your steering solenoid while you're driving, or you're just starting it up. Computers are fairly intelligent now to where if anything is wrong in the wiring or in the system, or even if something's not wrong, it just won't function. The car won't even start. Especially if people are going to stop knowing how to, or getting the experience of emergency evasion or emergency braking. It is a little concerning, for sure. And I've
said it before on one of our other podcasts. I talked with someone and they said, well, very soon is going to be a driverless vehicle that the vehicle will run. It'll take you to a certain place, and you can read the newspaper or do something while you program in where you want the vehicle to go, and you don't have to pay attention at all. It's completely autonomous. And I said, well, they've already invented that. And the guy said, huh? I said, yeah, it's called a train. and he didn't understand that at all. And he said, oh, that's true. People don't understand that. If you want to have a vehicle and you want to drive it where you want to go, get a vehicle and drive it where you want to go. If you want someone else to drive, take the bus.
Right.
There you go.
That's exactly how I feel. So whatever car you choose, get out and drive. Make sure that you are the driver. And it's a huge hunk of metal, but it's an experience. And it's an experience that causes memories, and it stays with you forever. Hey, Brad, what drives you?
Well, I'd say a love for the craft. I'm pretty new to the industry, to the hobby. I got into it purely off a blind chance, really. Always loved cars. Didn't ever work on them. But I was I was studying something else, and didn't really suit me. So I applied to McPherson College and went down that road and just caught the bug, real hard.
Awesome.
So it's been about 4 years since then. And what's been driving me is just continually improving my skills, learning new skills, and getting mentored from gentlemen like yourselves, who have a whole lot of knowledge and a whole lot of years of experience that
cool.
That just benefit the community that much.
That's really cool.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't have anything else for Brad unless Brad's got something he wants to plug. Got social media, Brad? You want to plug your social media?
I have social media. However, I'm not very active on my social media, so it wouldn't really be really exciting. But yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook.
You're not on
my name.
You're not on the Instagram. That's for 9-year-old girls.
I'm not on the Instagrams. No, I'm not on the Twitters.
No. You don't have any TikTok dances?
No, I don't have any TikTok dances. That might scare people.
God.
I'm gonna make a prediction that sometime within the next 2 weeks, John will have you set up on Instagram.
Probably. Oh, not opposed to it. Just I haven't really gotten into it.
Yeah.
Well,
sweet, right, man. I love talking to you.
I've got nothing
absolutely.
else.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for spending time talking to us. It's interesting to hear your take on and your viewpoints on things. And I know I've got my take and viewpoints on things. And to hear somebody that's half my age or less, and their viewpoints is to me it's really eye opening and interesting. So
yeah, it was a really cool conversation to have, and it was really, really fun.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome, Brad. Thanks, son.
Thank you.
I am John, Custom Car Nerd in Meyer. You can follow me at Custom Car Nerd on Instagram.
And I'm Shawn, Mr. Sedan Man Sherrill. You can follow me on Instagram at Mr. Sedan Man.
What drives you?